Hey guys, welcome to another episode of MixHax. And this episode, what we're going to be talking about is testing. Now, when we say testing, it's single flavor testing, right? Or, testing as a general topic, not just single flavor testing. So I'm going to talk about how I do testing, and each of us will do exactly the same. For me, it's actually a little bit more simple. I'm rather lazy, so I don't do that much single flavor testing. For me, what I do is the back of the hand test, which sounds extremely complicated, but it's actually quite simple. You just put a drop of concentrator on the back of your hand. You give it a lick. Quite strong, but that gives you an idea of where that flavor is. Now, if you want to know how two flavors potentially will work together, especially if you're working with fruits, you can take the two flavors and you can drip them on the back of your hand, right? 2 drops, 1 drop of each flavor, and you can also just lick it, and it gives you an idea of how those two fruits will work together. At the same time, I also take the 2 concentrates because I can't just trust my taste buds. I have to use my nose as well. I also give it a good whiff for a while to get an idea of what kind of fragrance that concentrate has. And then if I'm going to be mixing 2 flavors together, or if I'm starting to develop, I always take the 2 concentrates that I'm thinking about. Hey, this could be a good mix, or these 2 could potentially pair. And I just give it them a good snozz, for a while. And that gives me the aroma of how those 2 might work together. That then will tell me, okay, carry on or discontinue, and that's normally what I use. That's good enough for me, just to decide, am I actually going to be building single flavor tests, or am I going to be building a simple recipe together to see where this goes. But yeah, that's pretty much what I do, guys.
I'm pretty much on the same structure as you are. Initially, when I started DIY, I did a lot of single flavor testing. I don't really do anymore, and I haven't for a very long time, because the concentrates I have is concentrates I know. So there wasn't really a point in retesting or testing more of the same things. So I tested single flavors in the beginning. I don't really anymore, even if it's a new one, but I do testing on samples. Initially, when I did single flavor testing, I would just smell the concentrate, mix it, and then use a dripper from there to get an idea of where I needed to be in percentage. I also, at later stages, when I started combining flavors to create recipes, the first thing I would do was take whatever the amount of, I normally start a recipe by thinking what I feel for. I mean, what would be good? What would taste nice? Then I think about what's the main profile, or let's say I'm thinking orange. Then I would pick an orange, that's my favorite, then put that down and think what would go well with the orange. Sometimes I even Google what is good combinations in orange or citrus with what fruits, and then I kind of pick what I think from that would be good. Take the bunch of concentrates, whether it's 2 or 4, I put them all together and smell them all together. Then I put them down and mix them into single flavors. From the single flavors, I would individually check each flavor by sometimes tasting it initially, or on the dripper is more accurate for me, because vaping it and tasting it sometimes has a very big difference. Like, it would taste very, very potent for me, but then I later found it would taste potent on the finger lick or back of the hand, wherever. If you lick it, you will taste it. And then you would vape it, and it would not be as potent as it was when you tasted it. So for that reason, I just stuck to a dripper or 2 drippers, and then I would take the single flavors and sit with getting the single flavor to the percentage first. Obviously, keeping in mind the recipe I'm going for, some need to be more potent than the others. This was obviously before I got to know all the flavors. So I would then sit with a dripper and start with the main one. Let's say the orange, and let's say 5 drops or 4 drops. Then whatever else would complement that, let's say we went with strawberry and a touch of cream, I would generally start with the cream because in my mind that's the base. So I would drip the cream, drip the orange over that, and then add half of whatever the complement concentrate would be. So half of the strawberry, 4 drops of orange and 2 drops of strawberry. If that doesn't work, I'll vapor dry and just work through the ratios that way. I mean, 3 drops, 1 drop, or 4 drops, you know what I mean. So that's what I initially did. Then I eventually stopped that because I'm too lazy to re-wick every third flavor, especially if it's flavors that kind of stain your wicks. So that didn't work. I just continued mixing various 30 ml batches and chucked away a lot and kept a lot. But on the 30 mils I tested, I would generally find what I like, get what I don't like. These notes are too high, too low. I would mix another 30 mil, and the first one would still be around. I keep record of every version and eventually delete the versions that never worked out, stayed harsh, stayed underflavored, or so on, and then eventually get to the version I like. And then on that final version, I would be happy and save the recipe. I recently got a tip from a genius to save on testing and concentrates. Richard told me, we were talking the one day about a specific amount of one concentrate that I wanted this high but couldn't stand it at that high. But I mixed 3 versions so far, and I told him, look, just tell me what you think, because I can't mix another 3 to get where I want to be. And instead of doing it my way, which was, I don't know why I never thought about that, instead of doing it his way, I mean, I would mix one batch or 130 ml per whatever amendment, whether it's just a little bit down on one concentrate, there would be a new version. With Richard, there would be that one concentrate. Instead of just mixing a new bottle, I keep track of what I put in and calculate the difference and add that difference in if it's increasing. Obviously, if you're decreasing, it's not that easy. But for increasing and saving, that's basically what I'm at now. I would mix something, taste it, give it a steep, taste it again, and then decide what needs to go up, what needs to go down, make the amendment, and mix the final version. So at this stage, I don't think I mixed more than 3 versions. Testing is not that much anymore. Richard, how's yours?
For me, single flavor testing is one of the most daunting things for new mixers coming in. It's the necessary job that a lot of people don't want to do. I mean, firstly, because mixing, tasting flavors on their own just isn't that exciting. You know, it's nice to taste a new flavor, but once you've had 3 or 4 drags, you kind of know where it is. Now you're sitting with a 10 ml bottle of it. Now, what do you do with that? So I developed my own single flavor testing regimen. And as with everything else in mixing, I'm working towards an end game or an end principle. So what is it that I want from testing? Well, the first thing I want is that I want to get a very good idea of what a concentrate does, but I don't just want to know what that concentrate does at the ideal single flavor percentage. I want to know what it does at an accent percentage, as a supporting flavor percentage, and as a fully flavored percentage, because not all flavors are linear. A flavor at 1% is not going to be the same as the flavor at 5%, just a lot weaker. What happens is that you get, the sweetness ramps up, or the moisture ramps up, or the dryness ramps up, or off notes start to manifest at, certain percentages and so on. So what I want to get is a good idea of how that flavor changes over the percentage range. Now, that immediately causes a problem, because how do you test that? You get in a new 10 ml flavor. Now I want to test it at 1%, 3%, 5%. If it's, say, TFA, Capella, Flavor West type of regular flavor. So I want to test it over a range of percentages. Now, this refers back to what Dietz was talking about. Now, a lot of people will mix up 3 10 ml samples, one at 1%, one at 3%, the next one at 5%. Now, okay, so you're mixing up 30 mils of tester juice. You're vaping 1 or 2 mils of each bottle just to get a feel. And what then? You're now throwing away 24, 25 mils of tester juice because you've taken your notes and there's nothing more to do. So I developed a different technique for myself. I use 20 or 25 ml amber bottles. And all the syringes that I thought I was going to use for mixing my volume and bought and then ended up not using. So what I do is I mix up a 15 ml at 1%. I let it steep, and then I keep it in this bottle. To then test it, I withdraw exactly 1 milliliter using the syringe, and I drip that. So by only withdrawing 1 milliliter exactly at a time and keeping track of what I've done, I know how much of the tester I still have in the bottle, and therefore how much concentrate I still have in the bottle. Now, if I start with 15 mils at 1%, that means I've put in 0.15 grams of flavor. If I then vape 2 mils of that, I'm left with 13 mils, which logically has 0.13 grams of flavor. Now, if I want to increase that to 3%, I've got 13 mils at 3% would be 0.39 grams. I've already got 0.13 in, so I need to add 0.26. So what I'll do is I'll put this bottle with the already steep tester in on my scale, tear it, add 0.26 of the flavor, give it a good shake, leave it for a couple of days. It'll steep faster because the juice in it is already pre-steeped. So the addition that you make will steep quicker. Now I have 13 mils of 3 ml juice. So in one bottle, without having to mix up a second tester, I'm now able to test at a higher percentage. And that's how I do it. I just keep adding. If I want to then increase to 4%, 5%, 7%, whatever it is that I want to do, I'm doing everything in one bottle. I'm starting with 15 mils, and every time I'm vaping a tester, it's going down, down, down. So by the time I've done all my single flavor notes, I'm probably down to about 6, 7 mils anyway. So I'm not throwing away large quantities of testers that, I can't do anything with once I've done the single flavor notes. What I then do is when I finish my single flavor notes, I'll decant whatever's left into a 10 ml dropper. And now I get to mixing the flavors together. Okay, now because I have a lot of flavors, I'm not ordering that many new flavors. A lot of my vape mail, concentrate vape mail is restocks. But when you're just starting out and you don't have many concentrates, probably, every vape mail delivery of concentrates that you get will have a bunch of new flavors in. So if you test them all at the same time, you could end up with 7, 8, 10 ml bottles with the dregs of your single flavor testing, and then you've already done your single flavor notes. But now, instead of throwing that residue away, why not start trying out combos? Let's say I get 4 fruits, 2 creams, 2 bakeries, and a candy in a vape mail, and I'm single testing those all at the same time. Now I start mixing them. I put a candy with a cream and a fruit together. I put a candy with 2 fruits together. I put 2 creams and 1 fruit together. 3 fruits and 1 cream together. And how I do that, I just take my dripper and I just pour directly from the from the tester bottle into the dripper. And that way I can also kind of juggle the ratios. If I want twice as much fruit as cream, I put in 6 drops of fruit, 3 drops of cream, and so on. So it's not a scientific method. It's not going to give you a banging mix off the bat, because the juices sink into the wicks at different rates and so on. But what it does is it just allows you to get a feel, a kind of ballpark feel for, if I put this cream together with this bakery and this fruit, what is the resulting profile going to taste like? And you can tweak the ratios a little bit, up the bakery a bit, drop the fruit a bit, whatever. So, it's not, even if I don't get a recipe from it, I'm just building my sort of experience database of, if you try these 2 flavors together, this is the kind of result that you can expect from it. If you want to balance the flavors, you've got to use twice as much of this type of flavor as that type of flavor. So you just generally mucking around, dripping different flavors and just experimenting, trying stuff and building your experience database. If there's something that works really well, you add it to your notes. If it doesn't work well, so what? You vape it dry in 4 or 5 puffs, and you then move on. And I don't even change the wicks in this, because that, then you're changing wicks every 10 minutes for a whole evening while you're testing. I just vape from one through into the next, because even there, when you switch from one combo to the next, you've got that crossover period, which in turn can then give you something useful and something you didn't expect, and which you can then use. So, it's not something you're approaching very scientifically. It's just fun that you're having with flavors that you would otherwise have thrown away anyway. So you're just having some fun and you're trying out different combos. And if you get something from it, great.
Yeah, I actually, what I do, of course, I've got a magnetic stirrer. So, I've got these little beakers, and, because there's a wealth of information out there, they give you a ballpark figure of where you can start. That's why we always talk about, hey, but in 3,000 recipes, the average used quantity of this is like 1%. Now, if it's at 1%, and it's not a new flavor, then, I kind of cut back a little bit, because I know, in 2015, 2014, we were mixing at much larger percentages. Then I get an idea for, okay, this is where I probably need to start. And that's where I start with, that paired with something else where I've already got that fragrance of harmony that I thought, hey, this is going to work together. Then once I've mixed up a small little sample of that, I actually just, straight from the concentrate bottle, while the magnetic stirrer is spinning, I feel, hey, but, I want the grape to be a little bit stronger. I drip 1 or 2 drops and then I try it, because I know, okay, I was at about 0.8% grape, and now I'm adding more, which means I'm getting closer to, a 9%. So that's what I do to get an idea of how 2 fruits go together. It is the lazy way of doing it. Richard, I really like what you were talking about now. It gives me a lot of perspective and fun that I can have, rather than the daunting sort of experience of single flavor testing. I think this makes it a lot more fun, because you end up doing your single flavor testing, but then you end up also using your single flavor testing in combinations.
Yeah, I think it's also useful. People don't want to mix up multiple testers. They just want to test the flavor at its ideal single flavor tester percentage, because that's the most convenient. But yeah, I don't think you're getting a good overview of the flavor if you only, if people tell you it's a TFA flavor, it reaches peak flavor at 6%, and you only test it at that percentage. How often are you going to use it at 6% in a recipe? Never, right? You're going to use it at 3%, 2%, whatever. So you need to know what the flavor is doing at those lower percentages as well. If it's at half percentage, is it still as juicy? Is it still as sweet? Is it still as vibrant as it is at its peak percentage? And once you have done that testing, then you can say, okay, at accent percentages, I can expect this from the flavor. At full percentage, I can expect that. So you're getting a much better overview of how the flavor changes over the linear, percentage progression.
Okay, cool, guys. Is there anything else?
That's it from my side.
All right.
Just one more
Rich.
thing. If you're used to doing back of the hand test, but it comes across as too chemical for you, and this is the problem I have with back of the hand. It's always very chemical for me, and I just can't see past that. Another thing you could try, this was a tip from, I think, Matthew Topolsky, which was given to Wayne, which was given to Manson, and it was spread that way, but not that many people tried. It's just to do the old the whipped cream test. Buy a can of whipped cream, put a blob of whipped cream in a teaspoon, put 2 drops of the flavor in the whipped cream, just sort of stir it in a little bit with a toothpick or something like that, and then you just eat the whipped cream. And it gives you a very good representation. It's strange because you would think that the actual flavor of the whipped cream would kind of, that it would block you from getting a clear idea of what the flavor does, but it doesn't. It's kind of, you are able to look past the whipped cream and to get to the heart of the flavor. It's actually really good. All the flavors that I've done whipped cream tests on have given me actually a pretty good representation of what that is like in the vape. And there's no mixing, there's no steeping, there's nothing. You can buy the flavor, take it out the pack, and you can test it in whipped cream straight away. No steep, nothing like that. And you get actually a pretty good representation of how that is going to vape. The whipped cream is almost like the vapor in your mouth, and you then get the flavor on top of that. And it's not chemical because it's diluted in amongst all the whipped cream. So that's actually a really good technique to use.
Cool. All right, guys, I think that pretty much wraps it up. So thank you so much for watching the show. If there's something that you do differently, and please let us know in the comments below, mention it below so that we can put in that post and other people who watch this video can get that information. But thank you so much for watching the show, and yeah, we'll see you guys next week. Cheers, man.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys.